Boy, oh boy, it's been a crazy day, hasn't it, with Iran and Israel and the ceasefire. We don't even know what the situation is right now because it's so out of control. We're going to break it all down. My name's Brian. This is where MAGA comes to talk. So President Trump, you look at Israel and Iran, you look at Ukraine and Russia. You have lunatics running all of these countries. I'm a strong supporter of Israel, but that doesn't mean they don't have lunatics running their country right now. We've had lunatics running our country from time to time. Biden, Obama, and others, right? War criminals in G.W. Bush's case. And, these four countries, they just don't want to stop fighting. Iran and Israel do not want to stop fighting. Russia and Ukraine, it's the same thing. And what is President Trump to do? Right? He handed a perfect situation to end this fighting between Iran and Israel. The stated goal of the military campaign of Israel was to take out the nuclear capabilities of Iran. And this is something they've been developing for decades. We've been hearing about it for a long time, and they finally got to the finish line. And Israel didn't have the weapons capability to take it out because the facility was so deep underground. Trump went and took it out at great expense. I read some stories that each one of those bombs was $500 million. I don't know, but that's what I've read in multiple press accounts. So we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar military operation. Blew up the whole facility, and then that was on Saturday. And then Trump sent the bombers back on Monday to take out the infrastructure and the surrounding area so that the facility could not be rebuilt. He got a ceasefire agreement with both countries agreeing to it, and they had 12 hours till it began, and they decided in those 12 hours to go out to full-scale World War III, and this is what got us to where we are. The president had a press conference about this. I want to go through that in a few minutes. But we're at a point now, unless something dramatically changes, and hey, listen, in crazy situations like this, things can be settled on a dime. Something miraculous could happen. But we're at a situation with both of these wars, Russia, Ukraine, and Israel and Iran, where you have to say to yourself, there's nothing that can be done that's going to stop them from killing each other. They're just going to continue to fight and fight and fight until there's nothing left. I mean, this is just insane. It's an obsession for each one of the countries. Each one of these four countries has an obsession with the other one that they're at war with. And that's just the way it is. I'm still a supporter of Israel, but what happened here in the last 12 hours or so is outrageous. And I really, truly feel that Netanyahu and his government betrayed President Trump, in my opinion. And you guys can let me know what you think about that. And I don't think he's happy about that at all. In fact, he was fuming this morning. I've never seen the president as angry as he was this morning. I'm going to play that too. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And I'm very curious to hear your comments in the comments of section of this program on whatever platform you're listening to me on. But, we've got to, I'm always going to back the president in whatever he does, okay? And he very well could have this all worked out before I upload this podcast. You never know. He's an amazing man and the most competent person ever to be president of the United States. But he gave both sides what they wanted to end this war, and then they couldn't do it. So what else is he to do? And you get to a point where you got to wash your hands clean, maybe, and say, hey, we're not going to get deeper into this. In fact, maybe Trump should send Israel a bill for all those bombs we dropped on Iran, or take it back in some kind of rebate for the whatever foreign aid we give them. Because that's just wrong. President Trump took out that nuclear facility in Iran at great risk to American service personnel and the risk of taking this country into war. And look at the divide we've had even among MAGA Republicans in this country over him doing that. But he did it because it was the right thing to do. And then what happened? They've betrayed him. As it continues to develop, we'll see more. But let's get into some of what happened today. The president, of course, he went to The Hague today for this NATO meeting, And on the way there, he had a press conference. Now, the beginning of this press conference, just the very beginning, this is from the White House, okay, is just audio, but then it goes into video. This is from the official White House feed.
Hello, everybody. How are you? How are you? How are you? We have breaking news. Everything good? Israel, as you know, turned back. They didn't do that raid this morning, fortunately. That was a big thing. Appreciate it. They had a lot of planes going, and they were going to do something, and they didn't do it. We're happy about that. Very happy about that. So the ceasefire is very much in effect, and I think we're going to keep it there for a long time.
Okay, now this was when he was on Air Force One on his way to this NATO summit. So he said the ceasefire is in effect, and it's back on at this time. Okay.
Did you speak to Prime Minister Netanyahu about that?
I did.
What did you tell him?
I said, you got to turn back the planes. They were going to go because, look, they hit him very hard after we made the deal yesterday. They were entitled to, but nobody thought that would have happened. But they hit him very hard, and that shouldn't have happened. And then, as you know, Iran hit them very hard last night because of that. I don't think they would have, except for the first hard hit. And I guess a missile was launched a couple of minutes afterwards, which went nowhere, which hit nothing. And there was going to be a retaliation this morning by Israel. And I said, you got to call back the planes. It's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. And they did, which I respect very greatly. So nobody was killed. That was the story. But they had a lot of planes going in the wrong direction. You know that,
yep.
Right?
Do you want any consequences for Israel or Iran for breaking?
They didn't do anything. No, they didn't do anything. They would have if I put out a statement on truth, and they didn't do anything.
Sir, how are you confident that this might not happen again? Say in a couple weeks that...
Tired of it. I think they don't want it to happen again. And Iran's not going to have a nuclear weapon, by the way.
You know, this is phenomenal that we have this much contact with the President of the United States. I mean, we are getting, without some third-person press spokesperson, we are getting real-time updates from the sitting President of the United States in a great crisis. I mean, this crisis that's going on with Iran and Israel right now is at the level of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, it's that big of a deal. And here we have the president right there answering questions with the press, and it's no holds barred. I mean, they're asking whatever they want to ask. This is phenomenal. It's amazing.
I think it's the last thing on their mind right now.
Mr. President, did Iran make any commitments yesterday about uranium enrichment?
About what?
About uranium enrichment.
They're not going to have enrichment, and they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and they know that. They're going to get on to being a great trading nation. You know, they're very good traders. And they're going to be a great trading nation, and they have a lot of oil. They're going to do well. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
So did they
The
promise?
last thing on Iran's mind right now is nuclear weapons.
Can you clarify what you meant when you mentioned regime change in your Truth Social post the other night?
Which,
Regime change? Do you want to see regime change in Iran?
no. If there was, there was. But no, I don't want it. I'd like to see everything calm down as quickly as possible. Regime change takes chaos. And ideally, we don't want to see so much chaos. So we'll see how it does. You know, the Iranians are very good traders, very good business people. And they got a lot of oil. They should be fine. They should be able to rebuild and do a good job. They're never going to have nuclear, but other than that, they should do a great job, which is exactly where I've been saying for years, you cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. But we're going to be with, where's Marco? I think Marco's here someplace. You know, our great Secretary of State. But we cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. They won't.
Yeah, Marco Rubio, I mean, you know, if he was the vice president, he would be the second MAGA president, no doubt. I mean, JD's kind of got that locked up, but Marco is amazing. Remember, these guys used to be the biggest of enemies. Remember Marco Rubio, little Marco, and he was making comments about the president's hands during the first campaign. Oh my goodness! And now look, they're the best of buds.
Have a nuclear weapon. And I will tell you, the last thing on their minds is nuclear weapons. They don't even want to think about nuclear. And our B-2 pilots made this all possible. They had a magnificent hit in the dark of night with no moon, no light, no
Amazing.
nothing. They hit the target perfectly, wiped it out. And the press is very disrespectful. I saw CNN fake news going, well, maybe it wasn't a perfect hit, it was perfect. They said maybe it did destroy it. We agree it did destroy it, but maybe it could have destroyed it more. No, it couldn't have destroyed it more. Everyone hit, and it's very disrespectful to those great geniuses and patriots that flew those planes through tremendous danger. So CNN and MSDNC are a disgrace. And so are the others. I mean, they're pretty much all a disgrace.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing period of time. Now we're going to NATO, and we'll get a new set of problems. We'll solve a new set of problems.
Do you think you'll meet with Zelensky when you're there?
Yeah, probably. I'll see him. Yeah.
What would you say to him?
Say, how you doing? He's in a tough situation. Should have never been there.
Sir, you said a couple days ago that you didn't think the U.S. should have to agree to the 5% increase in GDP on defense.
No.
Do you want to?
I was the one that said that's what they should be paying, as you know. No, I should do something. And they're having a problem with Spain. There's always a problem with Spain. Because Spain's not agreeing, which is very unfair to the rest of them, frankly.
So the U.S. won't be increasing our GDP to 5%.
We should pay what everyone else. You know, they're in Europe, we're not. You know, a lot of that money goes to rebuilding their bridges, their roads, so it can take heavy equipment. And, you know, we don't have any roads in Europe. We don't have any bridges in Europe. So, no, it wouldn't be quite the same thing for us. But we're with them.
Are you still committed to Article 5 of NATO?
Okay, now this Article 5 that they keep asking about, this is a big deal. And I tell you, Trump just thinks about things unlike any other president we've ever had. You know, you hear him here, and he's talking, and they're saying, well, should the United States pay their 5%? He's like, well, we'll pay what everybody else pays, but a lot of that money goes to roads and bridges, and to make them strong enough to hold heavy equipment, and we don't have roads and bridges in Europe. Now, this other thing, yeah, exactly. So why are we paying for all that? And the Article 5 they keep talking about, this is insane. What the Article 5 says is an attack on one NATO country is an attack on all, which, beware entangling alliances. That's what caused the First World War. We've all had that drilled in our heads our whole lives. And NATO set that up, and a lot of those people that set that up were around in the First World War. Many of them fought in it and suffered in it. It's amazing that they agreed to something so insane. And that's on the table, too. I mean, he just thinks about things that other presidents wouldn't even consider. We're so lucky to have. All right, let's get back to this. Again, this is President Trump's press conference on Air Force One on the way to Europe today.
It depends on your definition. There's numerous definitions of Article 5. You know that, right? But I'm committed to being their friends. I've become friends with many of those leaders, and I'm committed to helping them.
What do you want the role of NATO to be going forward once these other countries are spending more?
By having a unified system, I think we're going to have stronger peace, better peace, and I think we have that. When I went to NATO, they were broke. When I first started this whole thing, it seems like a long time ago, 9 years, right?
Wow.
But they were broke. I knew it immediately. I said, "You guys."
Has it been 9 years since he went? The time when he went to the NATO headquarters, remember that? And he had all the foreign leaders there, and he reprimanded them for building a military building out of glass. He says one tank could take out the whole headquarters. Who built it? And it cost like $1 billion or something insane. He was pissed. That was 9 years ago. Time flies, man. Time flies.
They're broke. They weren't paying their dues. 7 of the 28 countries, at the time it was 28, were paying their dues, but they weren't paying very much. NATO was broke. Then I said, you're going to have to pay, and we did a whole thing, and now they're paying a lot. Then I said, you're going to have to lift it to 4% or 5%, and 5% is better. And I guess they're voting on that today, but they're going to be lifting it to 5%. That's good. It gives them much more power.
Mr. President, if there's language in the final summit declaration about aggression by Russia, would you be okay with that kind of language?
Well, I'll have to take a look at it, but, I'd like to see a deal with Russia. As you know, Vladimir called me up. He said, can I help you with Iran? I said, no, I don't need help with Iran. I need help with you.
Yeah.
And I hope we're going to be getting a deal done with Russia. It's a shame. 6,000 soldiers died last week. More, 6,500 soldiers.
Just last week, 6,500 soldiers. That's crazy. That's insane. A lot of death going on in that Ukraine war, and they won't stop it. President Trump's trying to stop it. They won't stop it. They just these Israel and Iran and Israel, Russia, Ukraine, Russia. They just won't stop killing each other. What's the guy to do here?
Last week, Russia, Ukraine, a war that never would have happened if I was president. So enjoy your flight.
Let me ask you one more follow-up. In your comments just now about Article 5, that will probably make some people in Europe concerned. Can you clarify what you mean? Are you still committed to mutual defense?
I'm committed to saving lives. I'm committed to life and safety. And I'm going to give you an exact definition when I get there. I just don't want to do it on the back of an airplane. Okay?
And one other question on energy. What's your take on the oil price situation right now, and are you concerned?
Great. I love it. It dropped almost $10 yesterday.
Yep.
I put out a statement, get it down.
When President Trump released that statement yesterday, don't raise the oil prices. What he was talking about is a lot of people, they use a crisis in the Middle East as an excuse to raise prices when they don't have to, because the oil they've had for a long time, and the oil that hasn't even been held up yet is how far away from the refinery, right? And they didn't do it, and oil prices went down with all this chaos with Iran yesterday. That is absolutely amazing. How could you not support this man? These people that are not supporting Trump, what are you thinking? Makes no sense at all to me. I mean, he is doing everything in his power to stop two wars. They won't go along with it. Yeah, I think it's time. If they won't stop fighting, wash your hands clean of it and let them fight it out amongst themselves. If you're a Medicare recipient or turning 65 soon, listen up. I want to tell you about free help with your Medicare that you can receive through Chapter at 805-754-3033. Medicare, it's confusing. There's so much to know. Chapter is a nationwide company. No matter which of the 50 U.S. states you are in, Chapter can help you with your Medicare. They're going to review the over 24,000 Medicare policies to find the one that's right for you and your needs and your budget. You go on the internet, you try to find the answers yourself. Good luck with that. And you don't want to find yourself talking to some pushy salesman that's going to push you in a policy that's best for him and not you. Doing that could cost you thousands of dollars a year. Give Chapter a call. It's free advice. You're going to talk to a live person. They'll get answers for you quick, and make sure your prescriptions and your doctors are covered. Give them a call, 805-754-3033. The number is also in the description of this episode on whatever platform you're tuned in on. 805-754-3033. 805-754-3033 for free help with your Medicare. Give them a call right now. Are you not sleeping at night? Well, it's probably because you're not sleeping on a MyPillow. And with this incredible new special that Mike Lindell is offering, you got to get your MyPillow. In fact, not only should you get a MyPillow for yourself, you should, if you already have one, get them for all of the beds in your house. Get them for your friends. Get them for your families. This is an incredibly low price. Right now, with our promo code KANE at checkout, K-A-N-E, you can get a MyPillow for just $17.98. The first one I have, I got it 10 years ago. I still sleep on it. I paid $65 for it. Now you can get the same pillow with that patented fill for just $17.98. That's with our promo code KANE at checkout, K-A-N-E. You see why I'm so well rested? Because I sleep on the MyPillow each and every night. You can also order by phone, toll free, 1-800-716-4879. 1-800-716-4879. Promo code KANE, K-A-N-E. Call or go to the website right now. Use our promo code and stock up. This is a very good deal. It won't last, so take advantage of it. $17.98 for a MyPillow with our promo code KANE. What a deal. Order yours right now. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Make sure you follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And remember, the Brian Craig Show podcast is on all podcast platforms. Whatever the podcast platform, just search for The Brian Craig Show. And the video version of the podcast is available on YouTube. All right, so before President Trump got on Air Force One for that press conference, he was fuming this morning. This is going to be one of the most famous, probably, moments in the Trump presidency and maybe in presidential history because he used the F-bomb. Now, we've heard President Trump use the F word several times over the years, but in rallies, right? I mean, and really it was as a joke. This time, he used it at the White House on the lawn on the way to Marine One, and it was right after this Iranian-Israeli ceasefire had broken down, and he was, for good reason, pretty furious, and I don't blame him. Listen, this is now he talked. I'm not just going to play the clip of him dropping the F-bomb. He's talking to the reporters about everything that happened, and this is while it was going on. This is when I was on the air this morning, and this really ticked him off, and I get it. It ticked me off too. Everything that's going on, and as he's already mad as he's on his way out there talking to the reporters, and then as he's going through it, I think he got more angry as he was living through the experience. Listen.
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Mm-hmm.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before.
Yeah, now see, this is an interesting because so many of these Candace Owens types that don't like Trump and don't support his actions of taking out that nuclear facility in Iran keep saying, oh, he's controlled by Israel, he's controlled by the Jews. You hear this from all these Trump haters, right? And here you have Trump really blaming Israel more than Iran for the breakdown of the ceasefire.
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that is nuts. And he is, I mean, that's, the F word is probably the best word in the whole English language because it has so many different meanings. You can use it in so many different contexts. And it's just when you say that word, everybody knows exactly what. Sometimes you got to say it. It just is a word, the F word, that really brings home how seriously messed up everything is. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, that was perfect diplomatic language. How better way could he have said what he said than dropping this F-bomb?
I say, okay, now you have 12 hours. You don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Oh my. And that's it. Mic drop. I mean, how cool is that? And he walks right to Marine One. I mean, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. He'll get control of the situation. Whatever happens, it'll be for the benefit of the United States. He'll make sure that we don't get harmed by it. But it's going to be hard for him to trust Netanyahu again, isn't it? I mean, President Trump has been so good, not just to Israel, but to Netanyahu personally. And for Netanyahu to betray him like this, and they're friends. And there's nothing worse than getting betrayed by someone who's a friend of yours, right? You know, there are things. If you listen to me on the morning show when I'm taking live calls, some of the things people say to me are just insane. But it doesn't bother me. I'm used to that. But if someone I know says something just 1/10 as harsh as that's a friend of mine is what some of these callers say to me, then I'm like upset because it's a friend of mine. Why would you? You're my friend. Why would you say this? And he is just fuming at Netanyahu, no doubt about it. Well, New York City is really trying to save itself. I was talking about this on the podcast the other day. There was this poll out showing this lunatic is 4 points ahead of Governor Cuomo in the Democrat primary polls. He's got AOC behind him, and I was theorizing yesterday that the Democrats, that Governor Cuomo's own people may have released that poll showing him 4 points behind, and the poll may not even be real. I mean, he may be ahead or pulling even, I don't know, but there's a strategy that's being used by Governor Cuomo in this New York primary, and as crazy as it sounds, I mean, I know I'm not the only MAGA person out there who's advocating for Governor Cuomo to win this primary race in New York City, because everyone is saying the same thing. If this lunatic wins, he will turn New York into London, and there's no doubt about it. And so what they're doing with this strategy, it's a scare tactic. They are scaring the voters of New York to have a massive turnout to vote for Governor Cuomo in the Democrat primary in the New York City mayoral race. And, if they get a large turnout, Cuomo will win. And if this idiot wins, it's not just New York. New York's in trouble in the immediate, but the whole country is in trouble because this could be a turning point. So listen to this. This Zorhan, isn't that movie that they made? He's talking about, listen to this, he's talking about Netanyahu. What would happen if he's mayor and Netanyahu comes to the city of New York?
And Mayor Mamdani, would you welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu to New York City for whatever he comes for, given the US is not a signatory to the ICC, so he can travel to the US, unlike a lot of other countries. Would a Mayor Mamdani welcome Benjamin Netanyahu to the city?
No. As mayor, New York City would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a city that our values are in line with.
Now, that's an interesting thing. Arrest him. So the mayor has arrest powers in New York City? They're that powerful that they can order the New York City Police Department to arrest someone?
Countries. Would a Mayor Mamdani welcome Benjamin Netanyahu to the city?
No. As mayor, New York City would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a city that our values are in line with international law. It's time that our actions are also.
Even though the US is not a signatory to the ICC?
No, it's time that we actually step up and make clear what we are willing to do to showcase the leadership that is sorely missing in the federal administration.
Wow. So, he's telling us that vote for me, I'm going to turn New York City into a London town, or a town like London, and to a Muslim city. I mean, that is really scary. And what's even more frightening, that he would even suggest doing something like that. Remember when this moment, if he loses, probably not going to hear too much from him again. He might run for Congress or something, but probably not going to hear too. But if this guy wins and he goes on to become the mayor of New York City, you know how Democrats are. There's somebody on that ballot with a D next to their name, and but he's got to get through the primary first. And I can't believe that I'm advocating for Governor Cuomo to win this race, but he's got to win. If he doesn't win it, and this guy becomes the mayor, we're in trouble. I mean, to elect a guy like this of any American city, but especially where ground zero is, that would be one of the biggest turning points in American history if that guy becomes mayor, and it would not be good. It would be a turning point towards a decline, not of something good. If you're a Medicare recipient or turning 65 soon, listen up. I want to tell you about free help with your Medicare that you can receive through Chapter at 805-754-3033. Medicare, it's confusing. There's so much to know. Chapter is a nationwide company. No matter which of the 50 U.S. states you are in, Chapter can help you with your Medicare. They're going to review the over 24,000 Medicare policies to find the one that's right for you and your needs and your budget. You go on the internet, you try to find the answers yourself. Good luck with that. And you don't want to find yourself talking to some pushy salesman that's going to push you in a policy that's best for him and not you. Doing that could cost you thousands of dollars a year. Give Chapter a call. It's free advice. You're going to talk to a live person. They'll get answers for you quick, and make sure your prescriptions and your doctors are covered. Give them a call, 805-754-3033. The number is also in the description of this episode on whatever platform you're tuned in on. 805-754-3033. 805-754-3033 for free help with your Medicare. Give them a call right now. Now, Tucker Carlson dropped something very strange about the Murdochs. I want to play this, and then I'll talk about it after. Here's Tucker.
The Murdochs really hate Trump. There's no one who hates Trump more than the Murdochs. I got fired in April of 2023. In May of 2023, they asked me to run for president against Trump and said they would back me. Obviously, I'm not running for any, I would never get elected anyway. Plus, I like Trump. I mean, that's the funny thing is I actually genuinely, I get frustrated. I'm frustrated now.
So hold on. I'm sorry.
Trump.
You just said that, and they asked you to run for president against Trump, the Murdochs.
Yeah. Lachlan Murdoch said, you should run for president. We'll back you. The whole thing, the whole
Fox News apparatus.
And not just Fox, but, Wall Street Journal.
All of their
Post,
papers,
Times of
everything.
London. Absolutely, yeah, we'll back you.
And that came right from...
You should do that. I was already gone. They'd already canceled my show. I was still under contract, but they canceled my show. You should run. We support you. You should run.
We want to stop Trump.
Yeah, well, he was running.
Okay, so what's that about? Why would the Murdochs approach Tucker to run for president against Trump after they fired him? And I don't think they were serious about that, and I don't know if Tucker does either. But, there was a lot of fear from Fox about Tucker when they let him go, that he was going to go off and do something to put them out of business. And he really, even though he's not as relevant today as he was 2 years ago, for whatever reason, he did get the new media a real kickstart that it needed. I mean, the new media has been around. I mean, I would consider, even though he's a liberal jerk now, the beginning of the new media was Matt Drudge and the Drudge Report back in the Clinton era. But we've had people along the way that have given these big boosts, right? Breitbart, Lila Rose, and James O'Keefe, and people like that. And we were doing pretty good. I've been in traditional and new media. I've been part of the traditional media, with the radio, but also, but not mainstream media. Talk radio is what I've done, and we've always been alt media. And talk radio. You would hear Hannity used to say this a lot, that we're combating liberal media bias, and that was always really the main purpose of conservative talk radio that I spent my life doing. But I've always been involved in the new media since it was available. And I started my podcast originally over a decade ago, but I've been on different streaming things. I've always, whenever there's been a new technology out there, I've immediately gotten involved in it since I've been in this business. But anyway, the new media which was going strong, Tucker gave a big boost to it of credibility when Fox News let him go and he started doing some things online. And apparently there was some loophole in his non-compete that allowed him to do things online as long as he wasn't earning income from it while he was still under contract. And he gave a big jump start to new media that it needed, and we benefited from it. But it seems to me that the Murdochs were so terrified that he was going to go on and start some media enterprise that would put Fox News out of business, that they were out there trying to get him to run for president, either to keep him busy so he didn't start a media empire, or discredit himself with MAGA people by running against Trump. I don't think that they had any intention on him running for president, but it is interesting that what I do agree with him on, that he's right about, is that they hate Trump so much. And, why would they hate Trump so much? I don't know. I think these big time people like Rupert Murdoch are just like the donor class. They like politicians to be their servants, and most politicians are. They're there with their hand out all the time, begging for money from donations from these rich guys. And Donald Trump doesn't do that with him. They don't have control of Donald Trump. He's not their servant; they are his. Right? So these elite, powerful people, they don't like Trump because of all of that. That's what I think. But this is it seems to me though, and I like Tucker. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I know he screwed up last week with this Iran stuff, but there's the people have done worse. But he did screw up, and he's gotten back on track. But I really think he's coasting right now. He did some big, powerful interviews in the beginning and everything, and that was all cool and interesting and exciting. But what he's doing now is just kind of coasting through life, and maybe that's what he wants to do. Maybe he doesn't want to have some big media empire that keeps him busy. Maybe he wants to be semi-retired but still be relevant and keep his Tucker Carlson network going and doing something whenever he feels like it. Maybe that's what he wants. I don't know. But I was really hoping that he would be more relevant. Like he would do a show like every day like Patrick Bet-David or Megyn Kelly, But he doesn't really seem to do that. And a lot of these interviews he does just aren't as interesting to me as some of the earlier ones. But, who knows? He could have so much money that he's like, why should I work? That's a decision I've never had to make, okay, because I always have to work. But I wish he would get back into the groove because he is very good when he wants to be. But it seems that to me that everyone was very excited about Tucker when he first went on his own. But the downfall of Tucker, to me, seemed to be when he did that Putin interview. That Putin interview was awful. He didn't get anything out of Putin. And I get that. He was in Putin's house and, maybe he was nervous. But Putin dropped something in that interview. Now, Tucker aired it. It was a recorded interview. He didn't have to. But remember that interview he did with Putin? Putin dropped something that was huge. Putin said, and I wonder what is Putin's level of competency with English. Does he speak English well enough to do interviews in English and just wants to speak Mother Russia for Russian for propaganda reasons? I don't know. But anyway, Putin said to Tucker in the middle of that interview, I know you applied to be in the CIA. And Tucker didn't say anything about that, but he did leave it in the interview. He didn't edit it out. He could have edited that out. So did he really try to become CIA? A lot of people think he is CIA. I've heard a lot of people say, even this week, that they think Tucker Carlson is CIA. And, he's a good, and if he is, when did he become that? If he is, he's a good recruit because he's got a lot of access to a lot of important people. He can get in with people that others can't. But I don't know. I've always liked Tucker since his Fox News career. Just last week he betrayed us a little bit. And he's got this feud going with Loomer because Loomer did some pretty amazing reporting that I talked about earlier this week on the podcast. You can go back and check that out. I don't want to go over it again. But she really brought some big stuff up about Tucker that I don't think he's too crazy about being out there. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Dr. Appleton and his laser wave pain treatment. I think about what my life would be like all the time if I never met Dr. Appleton and took advantage of his laser wave pain treatment. He's rid me of pain 7 times with his laser treatment, and I'd still have those pains, right? Those times I fell off my skateboard still would have happened and busted my shoulders, the arthritis, my knee pain, all that. I'd be suffering so much right now, or I'd be a junkie on a bunch of pain pills. That's not good. His laser wave pain treatment works on every type of pain I've ever heard of. You've heard me talk about this quite a bit. And I was just talking to Dr. Appleton, and he brought to my attention, and I did not realize this, but, the laser treatment works on injuries and pains that you're suffering from car accidents or slip and fall accidents. And I realized when I fell off my skateboard those couple times, those were accidents, right? I slipped off the skateboard and fell. If you've fallen at home, fallen out in public, or gotten into a car accident, go see Dr. Appleton. I was in a really bad car accident, years ago, and my car got totaled. A girl hit me. I was sitting still in my car in a traffic jam on I-95, wasn't moving, and a girl drove into my driver's side, going 65, 75 miles an hour. It was bad. I thought I wasn't going to make it, but I did. And I'll tell you, I was in a lot of pain. I didn't know Dr. Appleton then. I don't even know if the laser wave pain treatment with Dr. Appleton was available then, but I was in a lot of pain. Just from the seatbelt, my chest was in so much pain just from the seatbelt, and I'd hurt my leg and everything else. And you know what? Come to think of it, that knee pain I'm suffering from probably was from a car accident that I was in. I bet you it was that he rid me of. But the laser treatment works on injuries from car accidents. And, a lot of people are getting into car accidents these days in Uber and Lyft rides. Can you imagine you're in an Uber, you're in a Lyft, and there's an accident? Well, some of these guys drive like nuts. Well, anyway, if you're in pain because of an accident, go see Dr. Appleton. Remember, the consultation is free. If you have x-rays, you have scans, bring them with you. It also works on every type of pain I've ever heard of: arthritis, bursitis, work and sports injuries, strains and sprains, repetitive motion injuries, post-surgical swelling, neck and back injuries, knee conditions, tinnitus, sciatica, spinal stenosis, fibromyalgia, plantar fasciitis, rotary tears, herniated disc, acute pain, chronic pain, the list goes on, and pain that you're suffering from accidents, slip and fall, or car accidents. Remember, appointments are not necessary. Even on Saturdays, there's no injections, no drugs, no surgery, no downtime. Give Dr. Appleton a call, 954-973-0710. 954-973-0710. That's 954-973-0710. We've had listeners travel from all over America to see Dr. Appleton. His laser treatment works. Online, AppletonCairo.com. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Brian. It's Frank from West Palm. How you doing here?
All right,
Brian,
Frank.
you were absolutely correct. LaPorta Roofing was amazingly phenomenal. They just completed my roof last week, and LaPorta Roofing was superb in all ways imaginable when installing the new roof on my residence. Tom LaPorta meticulously spearheaded the entire project from inception through to the finalization of the assignment. Tom handled all the paperwork involving city permits, inspectors, and my community HOA. He was always available, ensuring me that he had my back in all phases of the project. Additionally, Tom, Scott, and Dan, and the entire crew were very well organized with the plan, consistent with all policies and procedures, and craftsmanship was exemplary in all stages of the design execution. Tom, Scott, and Dan maintained continual contact with me, the homeowner, asking if there were any questions I had or anything further I needed. LaPorta Roofing is, in every respect, a stellar, 5-star, AAA, family-owned company that is a reliable, peace-of-mind roofing organization. These guys are spot on with regards to perfection, and they demand it. I remain mesmerized upon the completion of the job. My roof is a masterpiece. And one last thing before I forget, they were the least expensive quote that I received out of 4 quotes for roofing. I thank Tom LaPorta Roofing for all that they do.
Wow, Frank. Well, thanks so much. Tom LaPorta at LaPorta Roofing. He covers both the east and west coast of Florida and everywhere in between. He works with every type of structure: residential, commercial, municipal, and he works with every type of roofing material. Also, don't forget, Tom LaPorta will never sell you a roof you do not need. If you need just a simple repair, he'll do it. He can also handle the job of any size, whether it's a single-family home or an HOA with over 200 units. Give him a call. This number rings directly to Tom LaPorta's cell phone, 954-604-4602. 954-604-4602. And online, LaPortaRoofing.com. Frank, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Brian. You have a wonderful day.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. If you don't already, make sure you follow me on X at Brian Craig Show. At Brian Craig Show on X, guys. Okay, let's get right back into it. While we were talking earlier, the Democrats tried to impeach Trump. Articles of impeachment introduced by Al Green just failed. Listen to this. 128 Democrats voted against impeaching President Trump. 128 Democrats voted against impeaching Trump. So is the Democrat Party united behind anything? They can't even get united behind their Trump hatred. That's a good thing as we're approaching the midterms, because they're a party that stands for nothing. Okay, now Jack Posobiec put this up on X. You know, Mark Levin, he went on a rant. He is so upset that Trump put this ceasefire together. He really was. And I'm not a fan of Mark Levin. I used to be a fan of Mark Levin until he became a never-Trumper in the first campaign. And, you know, even Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about this yesterday. He was a rabid never-Trumper. He voted in the primary for Ted Cruz. And I'll tell you, I mentioned this on the podcast yesterday. He did this interview with Ron DeSantis during the campaign when Ron DeSantis was running against Trump. It was an infomercial. I couldn't believe he didn't question DeSantis on anything. He's not a friend of Trump's. He thinks he's better than Trump, and he manipulates Trump. And if you want to listen to his rant, I retweeted Jack Posobiec's tweet, which is the clip from the Mark Levin Radio Show. I'm not going to play it for you here, but it's a clip from the Mark Levin Radio Show going after Trump just yesterday about the ceasefire. It's right there on my X at Brian Craig Show. But I came across this article. It's from April 9th, 2016. Mark Levin, I would never vote for Trump. Again, now this is 9 years ago. Listen, conservative radio host Mark Levin says, this is in The Hill that I'm reading from. If you watch on YouTube, you can see the article. Again, this is The Hill, 2016. Conservative radio host Mark Levin says he will not vote for Donald Trump in the general election because of Trump's connection to Roger Stone. And look at everything Roger Stone has sacrificed for Trump and the MAGA movement, right? I mean, you know, his home was broken into by the feds and CNN. I mean, just a mess. They financially bankrupted Roger Stone. He's as MAGA as it gets, and he's proven it through his sacrifice and the oppression that he's suffered through. Anyway, this is from 2016. Conservative radio host Mark Levin says he will not vote for Donald Trump in the general election because of Trump's connection to controversial strategist Roger Stone. I'm not voting for Donald Trump, period, Mark Levin said. These bully, dirty tricks, Nixonian tactics, they're only going to backfire. So count me as a never-Trumper, Levin said on Friday. And again, this is April 9th, 2016. Levin is a strong supporter of Trump's rival, Ted Cruz. And Levin said this, quote, "There's been too much of this, folks, way too much of this. The crap of the National Enquirer against Ted Cruz." That was the stuff. There was a couple stories about Ted Cruz, his father's connection to Lee Harvey Oswald, and then there was something else, which I can't remember the details of it right now, so I don't want to mention it because I don't want to. It was pretty serious, and it's been a long time, and I don't want to get something wrong about that, but it was bad stuff. This is Levin talking, quote, "The crap of the National Enquirer against Ted Cruz, the attack on Michelle Fields. I mean, I can go right through the list. Too much, too much, too much. At some point, you've got to stand up to it." And then he says he would never vote for Trump. You know, here's the thing about that and all of this. Okay, I don't really like this term influencer. Okay, this is something that gets thrown around so much. But these media personalities are just getting too full of themselves and getting too much power and influence and injecting themselves and being taken as part of the decision-making process. And they shouldn't be, because each one of these people, whether it's Mark Levin or Tucker or even, you know, Steve Bannon, I love Steve Bannon, or any of, you know, they're fighting for access to Trump. They all want to be able to get Trump on the phone on demand. They are fighting for clicks, views, and an audience. And a lot of the things they do is just to try to go viral. And I got to tell you, as much as I love the new media, I don't think the new media should be a part of the decision-making process at the White House with the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And I hope Donald Trump starts cutting these people off. I wouldn't be so arrogant to think that I should be advising President Trump, that I know better than him about what should be done with this, that, or anything. He knows what's best, and he sees a bigger picture that none of us can see because he has access to information that we'll never know, okay? But there's a lot of narcissistic, self-important media personalities. Now, with that being said, there's also the possibility of this type of transition, and that is, and this is a serious question that I'm asking you, is the new media becoming the mainstream media? And I don't mean that in a positive way. What I mean by that is this. What's going on in the last week, this story that Loomer had on Tucker with this interview that he did, this business with Mark Levin that's been going on, and others. The traditional media aren't being courted by the powers that be anymore. It's the new media, right? Remember that thing I was talking about a couple weeks ago? Tim Pool was at a thing with influencers with Netanyahu that the Israelis put on. They're not courting the traditional media anymore because they don't have any influence. They don't have the reach, or they don't have the influence. So they're going after people like me and these others. And not that they're knocking on my door to invite me to these things, but what I mean is they're going to people in the new media because that's where the audience is now. And what we're seeing is what's been going on in the traditional media, right? New York Times, Washington Post, the NBC, CBS, NBC, all ABC, and the cable news networks, CNN, and all that. What's going on with the new media personalities right now, and I'm going to lump Levin into the new media personalities as well, is what's been going on with the traditional media forever. Okay, we just didn't know about it or see it. And since the new media is so independent, like, lone people, they let it be known because they got to let you know to be relevant. They need to know that they've got access, or somebody called them, or they got, So it seems to me that while we're still celebrating the rise of the new media, there's a lot of self-destruction going on inside the new media. I know, a little cerebral, huh? Am I being too cerebral, guys? I don't know. I think that's a good point to be made here. There's a good point to be made here. I'm going to get a little cerebral. The new media is becoming the mainstream media, and really, some of them are starting to become corrupt. And if you remember when the mainstream legacy media was on their way out, you would hear a lot of people say, these people in the Washington, New York media, all they care about is getting invited to the important dinner parties with all the important famous dignitaries and stuff. The new media, all they care about is bragging rights that they were at Mar-a-Lago and how many views, clicks, and likes they have. It's different drugs, but giving the same high that the legacy media had all those years. So we're really on in a bad situation where there's corruption and self-destruction about to happen with a lot of the new media. Now, And I know this is something that's hard for people to understand, but it's true. I have no interest in being in that world of stupidity that these people are in, like Levin and Candace Owens and all of these people. I do what I do. I do it the best that I can do, but I do everything I can do. Of course, I back Trump and want to help the president, and I'm as MAGA as it gets. But I'm not so arrogant as these people that I believe I should have his ear. And when we got the news Saturday that we bombed that nuclear facility in Iran, the president came on at 10 o'clock at night. So I turned Fox on and caught Hannity, and he came on at 9, and he had Levin on. And I felt, when I was watching Levin on with Hannity, Levin felt like he was personally responsible for this military action. I felt like he thought that in his head, like he had lobbied the president and gotten through to the president and made this happen. That's the sense I got. I'm not saying that's true, but I think Mark Levin is so in love with himself that he thinks it's true. He thinks that he's responsible for the president taking that military action. So the new media people, they're too self-important. I'm very grounded. And I've got a good career, and I'm very successful but I don't let it go to my head. It's not an ego exercise for me. It's important. It's also how I support myself and my family, but it's not an ego exercise for me where I think I know better than Donald Trump, because, to be MAGA, to me, is an understanding that Trump knows what's best for all the reasons I've mentioned earlier on this program and many times before. And what's happened this week, Mark Levin, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, okay, they've done damage to the MAGA movement by causing this division. And they're also doing damage to the new media that we have all worked so hard to build. Shows like this and all the others that are around there, they've done so much damage. We've almost put the legacy media out of business, okay? We really have. And they're on life support. And for these people to go around like Levin and destroy everything that all of us have worked so hard to build is insane. And a lot of it is these people view themselves as being in competition with one another. The media landscape is so huge. I never feel I'm competing with anyone. I give you an example. One thing you may have heard me say to callers on the morning show when I'm on the radio, and I'm also live streaming online when I'm on the radio. I am the radio. I'm on a bunch of radio stations, and I cover about half the state of Florida on the radio, from the Treasure Coast of Florida, all the way south through the Florida Keys to Key West. All right, and I cover the very heavy population zones of Florida. So in the area that I am in, on the air, there are probably 100 other radio stations within my whole listening area. And people have called me and said, oh, you suck on the air. And I was like, well, turn on another radio station. You're not, and I know they'll come back. I don't view myself as being in competition with any of the 100 other radio stations I'm up against every morning. I do what I do. I do it the best I can, and that's it. And the same goes for the online things that I do, my podcast, YouTube channel, and all the other things I do online. I don't view myself in there's enough space out there for all of us. And what's going on with these new media people, and I know Mark Levin may not seem like one of the new media, but he is, okay? Levin, there's some people that aren't in it, but you've got Mark Levin and Bannon and a few others, and it's like the Hunger Games. They're all trying to do damage to one another so they'll be the main guy. That they all seem to have this, that they all want access to Trump, and they want credit for things that Trump does, and they want to be able to say he did this because I told him to. But they're also trying to, in their mind, they're competing with one another, and if they can only take this show out or take that person down, that'll elevate them. And I saw an interview once with a liberal guy, a very liberal guy, but his name's George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. And he and Spielberg went to film school together. They started out together. And I saw an interview with him. And this reporter had asked George Lucas, when you guys were starting out, you both had some hits. And Steven Spielberg had his big hit first, Jaws, right? And he says, was there jealousies? Was there competition? And George Lucas said, my success has never been based on someone else's failure. I do what I do, and just what I told you, he said in a similar way. And all of these very dysfunctional media personalities, most of what they do, it seems, is talk about each other more than the issue or themselves, what people are saying about them. And it's so bad. Some of them have become so narcissistic. Levin's the worst. That it's like, well, enough about me. What do you think about me? Call me. I mean, this is how they're talking. It's very bizarre. But there's a lot of people like Megyn Kelly that have stayed out of it, and others, not just Megyn Kelly. But there's a lot of self-destruction and jealousy, and it's almost gladiatorial-like games between some of these new media personalities. We've got everything. We are now the media, not these old legacy people. And And what these people are doing with these things with Levin, they're self-destructing is what they're doing. They're in total self-destruct mode due to their narcissistic self-importance, and it's going to end up with them discrediting themselves with their own audiences like Glenn Beck did back when he was a never-Trumper in the first campaign. And I'll tell you, Mark Levin is a never-Trumper. He won't admit it, but he thinks he's better than Trump. He thinks he's smarter than Trump, and he hates Trump. I promise you, okay? You heard how Tucker said that the Murdochs, how they feel about President Trump, right? They hate him, right? I played that clip earlier in the show, and they just promoted Mark Levin, the Murdochs. My name's Brian. This is where MAGA comes to talk. I'll talk to you next time. Now, if you'd like to support the program, become a Patreon supporter. If you're a Patreon supporter, you have access to commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. And since I have upgraded the podcast to have a video version of the Brian Craig Show podcast, the audio version is still on all the podcast platforms, guys. But on YouTube and YouTube Music, I upload the video version. And Patreon supporters, not only do you have access exclusively as a Patreon supporter to commercial-free editions of the Brian Craig Show podcast, you get a commercial-free video version of it, completely commercial-free if you're a Patreon supporter. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of this and every episode on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And if you're one of our top Patreon supporters, you get a live on-air shout-out on each episode. Your name is in the description of the podcast episodes, and on YouTube and YouTube Music, your name as a top Patreon supporter appears on the screen while I go through the names like I'm about to do. So the following names are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, David, Laura, Rob, and SFjr. These are our top Patreon supporters. If you want your name on the screen and in the description, or you want to get those commercial-free editions of the podcast, go into the description of this episode. On whatever platform you're on, go to my Patreon page and become a Patreon supporter.